Hello, I am Javier E. Gomez with a special segment for today's verdict. The federal indictment of Mayor Eric Adams has caused a lot of confusion among New Yorkers. And to shed light on the situation, we welcome Assemblymember Zohran Mamdani from District 36. Hello, Assemblymember.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me on.
Doing great. Pleasure to meet you. Assemblyman, what are you hearing from constituents at this moment?
I'm hearing a grave sense of disappointment from constituents about the fact that we are currently being led by the first ever indicted mayor of New York City in modern history. And yet, at the same time, constituents have told me that their priority, their number one concern is not, in fact, that corruption has engulfed City Hall, but that they cannot afford to live in New York City, and that they see those two things as tied together because of the fact that Mayor Adams's legacy is also one of exacerbating a cost of living crisis by raising rents on 2 million rent stabilized tenants, supporting Con Ed's application to raise monthly utility rates by about $70 a month, and a host of other measures that have made life that much harder to afford here in New York City.
I know this situation is still developing, this news story, so things are changing minute to minute. But up to this moment, at this taping, what do we know?
What we know is that there is a federal indictment that has laid out charges of corruption for Mayor Eric Adams, and those charges include things such as willfully accepting more than $100,000 in flight upgrades, hotel stays that have been paid for by Turkish Airlines, as well as agents of the Turkish government, as well as additional allegations of accepting more than $100,000 in bribes that would then be sent as donations through United States citizens and those who are eligible to actually donate, but that money was being sent via straw donors. Another allegation is that the mayor pressured the fire department to greenlight the use of a Turkish consular skyscraper before doing any safety inspections of that building. And that's what makes this so disappointing and so indicative of the mayor's hypocrisy as someone who ran on the issue of public safety to then violate the very safety regulations that keep New Yorkers safe, all in the name of access and influence.
I know leadership, including yourself, have been calling the mayor to resign. He has said that he will not, that he deserves his day in court. And also, he has said that he is the victim of virtual harassment. He says that he is being prosecuted because of his previous stance on the migration crisis. You have any thoughts about that?
I think it's ridiculous for the mayor to try and make himself out to have been a target because of his rhetoric and policies with regards to the migrant crisis. This is a crisis purely of the mayor's own making. It is the mayor who is alleged to have received bribes. It is the mayor who is alleged to have received free upgrades and hotel stays. It is the mayor who is alleged to have refused to commemorate the Armenian genocide at the request of the Turkish government. It has nothing to do with asylum seekers. And what the mayor is looking to do in this moment is to divert our attention from his culpability to, in fact, make it seem as if he is the victim of a conspiracy. And the reason that I've called for him to resign, the reason that others have called for him to resign, is because of the fact that the mayor is due his day in court. The mayor lives in a country that we all live in called the United States, where you have a presumption of innocence. However, that is not a presumption that extends to the privilege of being an elected official. If you are leading a city of 8.3 million people, you have a daily responsibility to those people to lead them, to lead the 300,000 municipal workforce of the city, and manage a more than $100 billion budget. And if you say that you're going to fight federal charges with every ounce of strength and spirit in your body, in the way that the mayor has said, where does that leave your time for New Yorkers and the responsibilities that you swore an oath to uphold?
Can you walk us through the legal process? What happens now? He was indicted, and as of the day when we are recording, he's expected in court.
So he arrived in court shortly before 9 a.m. this morning, and we will likely hear more updates about his case at around noon of today. There is the prospect of an expedited trial. There is also the prospect of the mayor being removed from his position by the governor. these are a number of unknowns that we now will wait and see what happens over these next days and weeks to come. And what's important to note is that I have full confidence, as do many, in the 300,000 municipal workers of New York City and their ability to continue to pick up the trash, to ensure that our schools are open, to ensure that children can go to the library. However, these workers need a leader. And this mayor is not able to be that leader and hasn't been able, frankly, to be that leader for many months prior to this indictment.
That brings me to a thought that I keep hearing on the street, which is, can't the city function? Can it?
I think it can. It can function at basic levels. There's no question that we are in the hands of many talented workers who have been doing their jobs for years under very different mayors at very different moments. However, we've seen that just in the mayor's time in office, he has taken an axe to the city's ability to actually perform its basic duties. So while we know that workers from sanitation will pick up your garbage, the mayor's insistence on cutting from a variety of agencies has ensured that we are now looking at a level of service that is a shadow of what it was under the previous mayor. I mean, I'll give you an example, which is that today New Yorkers are living in a housing crisis. This is the number one concern I hear about every single day. And in this moment, the easiest thing to do should be to be able to find someone for a vacant apartment that you have. When the city has a vacant public housing unit, under Mayor Adams, it is now taking more than a year to fill that unit. That is a basic example of incompetence.
Now, looking to the future, in terms of policy and legislation, what can be done so these cases of corruptions, or alleged cases of corruption, I should say, in exchange for perks and other influences, so it doesn't happen, if it is avoidable?
It is absolutely avoidable. There is no one that forces you to get free business class tickets to Turkey. It is the decision of the mayor in these allegations to have done so, and to have done so repeatedly over many years, starting from when he was the borough president of the borough of Brooklyn. And the steps that we can take to ensure this doesn't happen again, one is to make clear that there is a political consequence for such clear violations of corruption statutes. And prosecutors are doing their part in ensuring that the mayor has to be held accountable for these kinds of actions. But we also have to make sure and make clear that New Yorkers do not stand for this, that even if you set the law aside, that for New Yorkers, what they're looking for in their leadership is somebody who at the basic level can follow the laws that they themselves have been legislating and passing for years. And that's something that I am committed to doing. It is something that many other legislators are committing to doing. But I understand why there's a crisis of faith in our government at this moment.
Something that has really shocked me is the split reaction to the situation. You have people who support the mayor, they stand by him, but you have a huge amount of people who are against him. And actually, in the press conference, when he spoke publicly about the issue, the heckling was incredible.
It was, and I think it's indicative of how New Yorkers feel about Eric Adams. This is prior to the indictment, we are talking about one of the least popular mayors in modern history. And that is because of the fact that this is a mayor who raised the rent 9% on 2 million rent stabilized tenants. This is a mayor who cut funding from schools, who tried to close libraries on the weekends. This is a mayor who has cut funding for childcare. I mean, people look at him as a person who is making it more and more impossible to live in the city. And so they are rightfully enraged. And, what we also heard yesterday was the mayor's attempt to make this seem as if he is the target of an investigation, partially by virtue of his race. And we also saw a number of protesters who are also Black New Yorkers making it clear that this, in their words, is not a Black thing, it's a you thing.
Exactly. They mentioned that. They mentioned that it's also about justice. And it definitely shows that there is a genuine, real discontent and economic anxiety informing all of this.
Absolutely. It is indicative of just how hard it is to afford to live in the city, and how Eric Adams is the person who made it harder to do so.
Thank you for this conversation, Assemblymember Zohran Mamdani from District 36.
Thank you so much for having me, Javier.